The new Lumix S5 Mark II can actually shoot in 6K, which is pretty impressive for an affordable camera. But as a working videographer or YouTuber, do we really need 6K? Is the image quality any better? What other benefits are there? And can our computers cope with the file sizes yet? To answer all these questions, we're going to take a short trip back in time. A short time ago in a galaxy far, far, well, here actually. 4K resolution became a feature in cameras like the Sony A7 III and the Canon EOS R, but many videographers within the galaxy stayed shooting at 1080p because the larger file sizes made editing slower. But then if we fast forward a little bit, too far. Computers have finally caught up, so we can actually film in 4K now and comfortably edit the 4K files, and it feels good. It's nice to have a steady, fast workflow for a change. But now we have the option to choose between 4K and 6K. What should we do? Now, since you clicked on this video, I'm guessing you're curious as to what the differences are and what it looks like. So here's some side-by-side 6K and 4K footage and see if you can tell the difference. Camera A was 4K and camera B was 6K in all of the different examples. So let me know in the comments how many you got right. Could you tell a difference at all? Now, it's very hard to tell the difference, but the 6K is just slightly more detailed and you've got to get real close. You've got to pixel peep as close as you can to tell the difference, but it's negligible. There's barely anything in it, especially once you upload it to YouTube and the files have been compressed. The real benefit happens when you want to crop in or zoom in. Both of them still look great at 400%, but if you go any further than that, the 4K footage starts to get a little bit pixelated and a little bit softer, whereas the 6K still holds up really well at 1000%. And this is really handy if you want to try and mimic a macro shot if you haven't got a lens with a short minimum focus distance, for example, because you can punch in and get all that nice close-up detail. The first thing I noticed was that the 6K files actually seemed a little bit brighter. The exposure was higher, but it still maintained all the detail in the highlights, which was nice. You don't have to worry about anything there. But if you do get this camera, it might be worth just checking the exposure levels. If you're used to the S5, it might be slightly different if you're filming in 6K, so just double check that before you get started. In terms of the colours, the 6K files are still 10-bit, but it's 420 instead of 422. I couldn't tell a difference. Did a little bit of colour grading, not overboard because I'm not a heavy colour grader anyway. When changing the hue colours, I had no problems, so I think you'll be fine. Most people won't notice a difference with the colour. It still looks great because it's actually 200 megabits per second, so still plenty of information in the file. And I'll talk about file sizes shortly. If you do a lot of vertical content or repurposing, there's actually a better mode we can use. Let me explain. To try and fill a vertical frame with a 16:9 ratio, you actually have to zoom in quite far. And that makes the subject too big or my head too big. And the framing isn't as nice because you're not getting any of this background stuff, which looks nice. And if you don't zoom in to keep the framing better, you end up with these blank spaces above and below your image. And we don't want that. But when you use the 6K 3:2 mode, you're actually using the full sensor. So we're getting all this extra space above and below the image, which means when we are creating a vertical piece of content, we don't actually have to zoom in as far as we would do before because we've got all that extra space. And as you can see, the framing is so much better. There's more space around me and it's not just a massive big head taking up the whole space. So how does filming in 6K affect your editing workflow? Now, I'm currently using the Apple MacBook Air M1 chip processor, or whatever it's called, and I also use a SanDisk Extreme SSD to edit from. And it's not the fastest machine on earth by any stretch, but it seems to handle the 6K files fairly well, to be honest, providing I don't have too many layers stacked above each other. But I always use proxies anyway, so no problems if that's your workflow. 1 minute of 4K 150 megabits per second footage was 1.18 gig, and 1 minute of 6K 200 megabits per second second was 1.49 gig, which is less than 1.5 times bigger, which I was surprised at, to be honest. I thought the file sizes were going to be huge. And the memory cards I use are these Pro grade ones. I'll leave a link in the description, or the SanDisk Extreme Pro ones are really good as well. I've always used these cards. They've got really good read and write speeds, so they're going to handle the 6K footage no problem. So should we be switching to 6K, or can we stick with 4K a little bit longer? I'm going to assume that you're a videographer with regular client work, or you're somebody who makes YouTube videos. Well, what I'm going to be doing is sticking with 4K for all my YouTube stuff, because if I use 6K, YouTube is going to compress that when I upload it anyway, so you're not going to get the benefit of 6K unless I need to do heavy cropping, which I don't tend to do anyway. So then that makes 6K a little bit wasted. You probably noticed that you get this banding around here or this side on the walls. That's where the file is being compressed. Whereas when I'm viewing the actual files, this image is completely clean. So that's what's sad about YouTube. It'd be amazing if they sort that out and you get a real good quality image. But when it comes to client work and music videos or sports, for example, then I will definitely be using 6K, because there might be times where I do want to zoom in and keep that resolution. So that's my plan. Now, don't feel like you have to go out and buy a high resolution camera, because it's not all about the resolution. Not all 4K and 6K is created equal. It's about the file sizes and how much information is being captured, as well as the color science. But I must say, the Lumix colors and image that I get out of this camera, especially the S5 Mark II, is phenomenal. It's the best image and colors that I've ever used. I'm super happy with them. I've tried loads of different cameras. The files are so good to work with when color grading. And unfortunately, a lot of people overcomplicate the color grading workflow and end up with worse images than what they started with. And if you want to know my super simple 3-step color grading process, then check out this video here, because it's going to show you how to get a professional looking image in the easiest way possible. But don't forget to subscribe, because I've got so many videos planned for the S5 Mark II on the way, along with other videography tutorials, camera comparisons, gear reviews, and lots more. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.